It's time for HawgSports Live from HawgSports.com, a division of 24/7 Sports, presented by Crain Automotive. The Crain Team's got 'em. Visit them online at crainteam.com. And now with the latest breaking updates on HawgSports, here's Trey Biddy.
What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. An action-packed show today. We're going to talk about some of the things that we've learned lately at Razorback football practice, some of the interviews that we've had with players and coaches, of course, and we're going to be joined with Danny West and talk a little bit about recruiting, but also get his thought about the season coming up and maybe if some of these young guys can help them. And we'll take your questions also. All that and more on today's episode of HawgSports Live. Arkansas, the natural state. We love being outside, fishing, hunting, or living our best life at the races, climbing a mountain, or just a day on the lake. The Crain team helps you get there with a great selection of trucks and SUVs. New full-size four-wheel drive crew cab trucks like F-150, Sierras, and Silverados are discounted up to $13,000 off. And you can get interest rates as low as 0% on a great selection. Let the Crain team help you get outside and enjoy our beautiful state. Visit us today at crainteam.com or at one of our 17 statewide locations.
Arkansas is a hard-working state, and we know you need to make your dollar go further. Crain Team's the home of affordability and a simple buying process. Fuel economy, great financing rates, and low prices. We've made it easy.
Get up to 40 miles per gallon when you shop new Kia K4 or Hyundai Elantra. Your choice, just $22,995. Or new Sportage or Tucson, just $399 a month.
The Crain Team is here to put you on the road today. Visit crainteam.com.
All right, everybody, visit our friends at the Crain team. Hey, if you didn't know, and if you're not signed up at HawgSports, you can sign up right now for 60% off or $1 for the first month. Two great ways to sign up. I always say, if you like what we do on the show, if you like the drive time segment, if you like what Danny does, check out what we've got going on at HawgSports. That's the best way to support what we do. 60% off. It breaks down to just $56 for the entire year, guys. That's $1 a week. It's $1 a week, $467 a month. It's a great deal. It's where our best content is. So sign up at HawgSports if you haven't done so already. One of the largest communities in the 24/7 Sports Network. Okay, fall camp schedule. As I mentioned, we're not long from the scrimmage. I just mentioned that because this will be the last show that we do before Arkansas has their first major scrimmage, which is on Sunday, the 16th. They'll wrap that up at about 1 o'clock, and then we'll talk to Ryan Silverfield. For the first time, we've talked to Silverfield since the 3rd. Yeah, so that's quite a long time to go. That's almost 2 full weeks since we've talked to the head coach. So we'll finally get a chance to talk with him on the 16th, get his opinion on how everything in camp has gone, and we'll talk to some players also. The scrimmage is closed, unfortunately. We have been able to watch some, contact. They strapped on full pads for the first time on the 11th. That was Tuesday, and then they took Wednesday off, and then they're back at it today. This will be practice number 7 today. 3:15 is when they'll start. They'll do stretch, and then they start at 3:15. That's when our viewing opportunity begins. We've been getting about 45 to 55 minutes, somewhere in between there, of practice availability. So that's been nice. And they've done some stuff that's, a lot of good content, some better stuff than I saw in the spring in terms of like watching D-backs and wide receivers go at it and stuff like that. So that's been positive. Today after practice, we'll talk with Coach Myers and Coach Johnson, as well as some offensive linemen. So that'll be good. And then they practice the 14th, which is Friday, Saturday the 15th, a little bit earlier at 2:30, and then they have the scrimmage Sunday, late Sunday morning, 1 p.m. press conference. They're off Monday. That's the start of school at the University of Arkansas, very early this year. And then we flip into morning practices as soon as school starts, which I absolutely love. 9:05 a.m., 18th, 19th, 20th. They're off the 21st. Then they'll scrimmage their second scrimmage on the 22nd. So 2 scrimmages coming in within 6 days. Well, only 5 days between them. So that's when they kind of start, after this scrimmage on Sunday, they'll kind of get more into like a game week type of deal. Usually about 2 weeks out, you break off into scout teams. So it's kind of a reality check for a lot of the younger guys who are learning Arkansas plays and Arkansas stuff. And now Well, we need you to learn the other team. We need you to learn the opponent stuff. So, you also, those kind of weeks, you might jump into an opponent a little later down the road. Maybe you start looking at Georgia a little bit. Maybe it's Tulsa. I don't know, but I doubt they spend just an abnormal amount of time on North Alabama, although you want to make as good an impression first game as you can with a team like that. We've seen FCS teams taken lightly before. I mean, I think Portland State, under who will not be mentioned, almost beat Arkansas one year, which was really a disappointing start to the season and kind of foretold what was to come. So far, 6 practices in the books. First full pads practice, this last one. We got to watch a little bit of team tempo. Obviously, we've been watching a lot of that, but we also got to watch some 2-minute team compete 2 minutes. So this was A.J. Hill's day with the first team offense, and they got stopped. So the way they start out, so you start out on the 39-yard line. The offense is down 13-8 in the fourth quarter with 58 seconds to go. And they have one timeout. They burnt their timeout on the very first play when Quincy and Souls and those guys got in there and made a sack on A.J. Hill. He kept moving the ball, but they ran out of time. His last pass was complete, but they ran out of time, and the clock expires, so the defense won. When KJ gets up there, he's matriculating the ball down the field. There's the big 4th and 5 conversion on the drive, and then as time expires, they run out of bounds with 6 seconds left, incomplete pass, 2 seconds left, and then as time expires, he hits Ty Lockwood, the tight end transfer from Boston College, originally from Alabama, over the middle for a 27-yard touchdown, and offense wins. So that kind of stuff, like when you're trying to figure out who's the starting quarterback, those kinds of competitions have to play into what when you're deciding. And obviously this scrimmage on Sunday is going to go a long way in helping determine who the starting quarterback is. I've made my opinion on that quite clear. I like AJ. I think that he's got potential. I just think that he's got to learn. I mean, he's got learning to do. Okay. So how the practice periods usually go in the times that we're there, we get about 8 or 9 periods. A period is about 5 minutes. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, like when they do the team stuff. Sometimes it ends up being a little bit longer. But they start off a lot of times they call it special forces. It's special teams. A lot of special teams work with this team. Period 2 will be like team compete, or it'll be team compete in some kind of way, like 2-minute drill or move the ball. Basically, they're 11 on 11, and they just keep moving the ball. Whether you complete the pass or not, you move on all the way up to you work in high red zone, low red zone, all that kind of stuff. So they do that kind of stuff. Now, we chart all that stuff also. Then they'll do like an individual ball security period, and then it's individual drills. Quarterbacks throwing. You've never seen so many swing passes and screens over and over and over again. Now, throw the ball downfield. They do that. They throw slants. They throw posts. They throw flags, all that stuff. But the majority, you would not believe how many passes straight to the sideline. So they'll do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It'd be individual, and then there's a team compete type of situation. Sometimes this will be the 11 on 11 a little bit later. Sometimes it's the perimeter drill, which I really like, which is wide receivers. They'll have like 3 offensive skill guys lined up to one side of the field, and then they'll have 3 defensive guys lined up over them. And the defensive guys are basically trying to battle through blocks and make a tackle. It's screen passes, swings. Every once in a while, they'll take it downfield, but that's like one time out of the it's usually like 2 periods. So it's like 10 minutes of this. But it's all about those D-backs trying to battle through blocks, and it's about the offensive guys trying to make blocks. And for whoever catches the ball, whether it's a screen or a swing or something like that, they're trying to obviously pick up yards. It's a very competitive part of practice, and something that we didn't get to really watch last time. I thought Kamori Houses looked really good in this kind of stuff. He's a guy that's, in the RPO game, like he can be a conflict type defender a lot of times, depending on what the offense is doing. But Lakai Rowland, Shelton Lewis has looked good. On offense the other day, DeQuane Prevost put a really nice block on somebody. So it's a fun period to watch. We break it all down on our post-practice reports, like all that team compete stuff, like one after another, just like what happened on each. We break down the 2-minute period, all those types of things. So good stuff to check out if you don't check out our practice reports. And again, that's VIP. So you do need a subscription to check out all that kind of stuff. Hey, you guys know how much I value longstanding relationships. I've known Bo Bittle for 25 years. And when I needed car insurance, homeowners insurance, business insurance for HawgSports, I called Bittle Armstrong. Bo, Rob Armstrong, and their team have over 100 years combined experience. And they work with you just like Auto Owners Insurance works with them. Expect local support from somebody you know. Questions about your policy, call Bittle Armstrong direct rather than a 1-800 number. Auto Owners Insurance intended it that way so you don't have to wait on hold forever. Do not settle for a generic policy. Wherever you are in Northwest Arkansas, give Bittle Armstrong a call at 479-443-0808 or visit ba-ins.com. Auto Owners Insurance owns an AM Best rating A+ Superior, and they trust people like Bo to work for you. Bittle Armstrong Insurance. Coverage you need, people you trust. I want to talk about some of the guys that we've seen here lately. C.J. Brown. I've enjoyed C.J. Brown lately. He's coming up messing with me a little bit. I had a Peter Millar shirt that I play golf in that I like, and he's like, "It's Peter Millar Tuesday today?" And then we were talking just kind of golf, like just a little bit, just in passing. He's told me he shot an 82 the other day, so apparently pretty good golfer. But the other day in the press conference, he's arguing with Ethan Westerman about this is hilarious, about whether or not they had morning practices in the past. And I can't remember who's arguing what, but CJ said something like, "Want to bet?" And Ethan goes, "You can't bet." I thought that was pretty funny, pretty quick by Ethan Westerman. But anyway, CJ, that just leads me into this idea. So this is from Larry Smith, the wide receivers coach. I think when I first got here in January, CJ, was more of a lead by example guy. But now he understands that he's kind of like the vet in the room. He's going into his third year here, obviously a hometown kid. So he understands, like, man, this is a very important year for us. And he's a guy that's been here. He understands the pride of playing for the University of Arkansas. I see that with CJ. I see, him stepping up as a leader. It's interesting to watch these guys. I've seen so many classes come through here over the years. And I remember like Keon Hatcher, and I brought Keon up a lot lately just because of the issue that he had as a freshman with drops and, how much he changed that as a sophomore. But I can remember when Keon Hatcher took it on himself, like, I'm going to lead this wide receiver room. And going from like a quiet freshman, sophomore where he played. But I just remember, and I believe it was that sophomore year where he's front of the line and, he's got something to say about everybody's rep, like what you need to do, like, hey, let's pick it up, all that kind of stuff. And I can remember, and I've seen that happen with so many players over the years where they've been kind of quiet and then they step into that role, It's an interesting kind of dynamic to watch as a player progresses that I don't think a lot of people think about. Jamari Hawkins is another kind of lead by example type of guy. More, reserved, which CJ has kind of been in press conferences and stuff, but he's opening up a lot more. And I like that about him. But Hawkins, Hawkins is just like, what's the work? What's the work I got to do in front of me? He's that kind of guy. And he said this, he said, my whole life, I've always been on one team. Park ball, middle school, high school, I've always been on one team. Even though we're in a new place, having the same coaches and people around me is just something that I'm really comfortable with. Also, I genuinely enjoy the people on staff, even outside of Coach Smith. I asked him about this, like, would you have even hit the transfer portal? And he's like, no, I would have finished my career at Memphis had they not all come over. But, his head coach, his offensive coordinator, his position coach, eventually the quarterback's coach eventually later. So, it's like the whole staff just kind of moved west, and he came with them. I think it says a lot too, like when you talk about your best players on the team, do they come with you? They did. Jamari Hawkins and Sutton Smith, Ismail Cece, I think, is another interesting guy. Ismail, I think, has been really steady. I think that's a really good competition between Jamari Hawkins and Ismail Cece in that slot. Now, they can move around a lot, but I think primarily that's where you're going to see those guys. But this is a really good battle. Like, Ismail Cece is steady, and quick. And, I don't know, like, after the catch that he's going to just do, like, a lot of explosive things. But before, when it comes to running routes and being a consistent catcher, a guy who gets open, CC has been pretty impressive. And then you've got Jamari Hawkins again, who, like, the staff has a lot of trust in him. CC says it wasn't like, let me just ease into it. This is coming back from his injury. He was starting the spring before he got hurt last year. He missed all last season, but he was starting that basically the whole second half of the spring. It wasn't like, let me just ease into it. It was more like, we want to win now. This is talking about Ryan Silverfield. We want to win now. And if you're not ready to do that, you can leave the room. So just hearing that from him allowed me to know we got a coach that wants to win now, and he doesn't have time to wait. So just really coming in with that mindset of knowing we had a coach that wanted to come and win. I mean, look at his resume. A lot of coaches like to say, they looked up his resume. Okay, this guy wins. They felt good about the hire. And I asked, this is in response to me asking him about, did you ever consider transferring? You're only one of like 25 guys that are back on scholarship from last year. And, he really liked what he saw from Coach Silverfield. Antonio Sandal Bascom, now moving to defensive line. So I noticed Antonio the first day because I'm walking through and I'm like, okay, I want to go over here and around here. I don't want to watch the quarterbacks down here. I want to see, like, as A.J. Hill changed up his motion, all this stuff. This is day one. And so to do that, you pass over by, the goalpost over on the turf practice field, and that's where the defensive line's going. And there I heard Hunter Osborne. That's the guy who's like, man, my feet are stinging. They're so hot. It was hot that first day. It's been hot the whole time. But also notice Antonio Sandal Bascom. And the first time I saw Antonio was last spring. He came in for a practice, and I was like, okay, this guy's, good size, like, looks like a lot of the other guys out here. I was like, man, this is going to be a lot of depth on the defensive line. So Antonio, the first thing I noticed about him, it was his ankles. Like, this guy has, I don't mean skinny, I just mean like proportionately, some guys you run into, they have, I've mentioned this before, but just kind of dumpy ankles. Like, this guy has the legs of an athlete. That's something I remembered about Jonathan Luigs when he was a recruit, because he was like being like talked about, as a walk-on and all that kind of stuff. And I just remember thinking, man, this guy looks like a runner, with his legs. Bascom's kind of got that. And then I noticed they did this drill where they've got these dummies lined up, and you've got to shuffle between the dummies. And he's quicker than any other defensive lineman on the team going laterally like that. And then to hear them say, this is from Landis Wilkerson, one of the defensive line coaches. Antonio's fitting in well, getting along with the guys. I mean, he'll go over and hang out with them and stuff like that. But right here, man, he'll play 100 miles an hour. So right now, getting him caught up on the playbook and things like that. But when it's time to go, that joker can go now. He's a physical dude. A lot of the same kind of comments from other players. I mean, shoot, we work out with him. This is from Okie. We see him power clean without his legs. He's just kind of straight arming 250 something. But I mean, I'm excited for him. Once he gets the plays down, he's going to be rolling. This is from Carlin Jones. He's strong and a freak of nature. He has to get the playbook down and his technique right, and he'll be dominant, very dominant. He has high energy. Like hearing that, because it's already to what I considered a deep defensive line group. And Antonio Sandal Bascom did not enroll, obviously. He's going through his 7th practice today. Later today, he'll go through a 7. Carlin Jones is also a guy I like. We had him in the interview room. I mean, I'd never talked to Carlin. I could tell immediately, like, this guy has a head on his shoulders. Like, this is a bright guy. He's from a small town in Texas, went to USC, didn't really fit in, I don't think, with the culture there. But he's a guy that helped USC. And guys, when we're like talking about some of these defensive linemen also, like Carlin Jones, who's going into his 3rd year when you should start making an impact, went to the college football playoff did he go to the college football playoff? But they won 9 games last year at USC, which maybe is a down year for USC. But you also think about Zadavian Sims. who they brought in from Oregon, former also number 4-star prospect. Zadavian went to the college football playoff last year. Trajan Odom, who's going into his second year, went to the college football playoff with Ohio State last year. And then, Hunter Osborne was on Virginia's first ever 11-win team last year. You're bringing in guys also on the defensive line that have a history of winning. But I really liked Carlin Jones. I don't know. He seems like he's laser focused, got a good head on his shoulders. And I liked our interview with David Oakey here. This is an interesting comment from David. We're about to get to Danny West. When I transferred here and I saw I was the only D tackle that was out of the portal, I guess inside I was like, okay, maybe it's good they brought me in. I'm ready to go, Oakey said. Seeing that when I got hurt, it was back to square one for them. It really sucked for me because I wanted to be out there with the guys and I felt bad. But it worked out, I guess. I mean, I guess with the 5-year deal, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. He still would have been able to come back. So anyway, just a few opinions on some of the guys, and we're about to get to Danny West, but I'd like to tell you about our friends over at Bet Saracen. If you haven't signed up at Bet Saracen, you can sign up now for $250. Or excuse me. No, you can sign up for free at Bet Saracen. You sign up for free. Oops, I brought up the wrong promo. You sign up for free at Bet Saracen, and if you put $25 down on your first bet, then you can get $250 back in bonus bucks to use on Bet Saracen. So a great way to sign up for Arkansas's only sports betting app. Everybody else owned by the national brand. So sign up with our friends over at Bet Saracen.
Arkansas's Fab Five for Bet Saracen.
Yo, Sid, what spread you checking out, man?
I'm checking out the Hogs on Bet Saracen.
Rainwater's exclusive specials and tons of Bet Saracen options make it Arkansas's favorite sports betting app.
And they take more action on the Hogs than any other sports book in the world.
Guys, I am confident it's because we do their TV ads.
I agree with that.
Amen.
Bet Saracen.
All right, Danny West joining us now. Danny joins us on the Ozarks Go hotline. If you're looking for fast, reliable, consistent internet service, reach out at 479-684-4900 or go to ozarksgo.net/hawg, HAWG. Find out if they're available in your area. Northwest Arkansas, parts of Oklahoma. I've never had an outage that wasn't scheduled, and I've never unplugged my router, even though a lot of internet service providers say to do that. Danny, how you doing,
buddy.
brother?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm in the throes of fall camp, obviously, so it feels like I'm going 150 miles an hour and always got something to do, which I guess that's not a bad thing. Danny, for you, the recruiting class is pretty much wrapped up, wouldn't you say? I mean, I guess there's the chance of a decommitment and a new commitment at some point, but they've got 24 on board.
Yeah, man. A couple summers ago when they got rid of that late July open period for recruiting, which is when we used to see everybody come in for a late July cookout. It gave us something to do, something to talk about. You'd give you July to work on that list. Now they've taken that away. And brother, I got to tell you, it gets pretty boring and pretty lonely in the dog days for a recruiting writer nowadays. And that's part of it, man. I'm not going to complain about it because
you'll be longing for those days in January.
Yeah, January, December, and June. It makes up for it. But man, it sure is. It's slow, and that's taking an adjustment for me. But when coaches get into fall camp, man, they shut it down pretty much. Of course, we're in a dead period that started June 22nd, and it runs through the end of this month. So it's understandable, but no new offers really. I got a few that went out last week, Trey. They offered a 28 running back in Illinois named Amar Benair, a borderline 4-star. Akeem Jones is an edge that they offered, 2028 edge last week out of New Jersey. And then a linebacker out of Georgia, Jaden Taylor, mid-range 3-star. So that's the list right now in terms of new offers. I've checked them out as much as I possibly can. So I've kind of shifted my focus to 2029s and 2030s inside the state, if you can believe that already.
Yeah, well, no, I believe you, Danny. And, it's interesting because I still see people commenting like on Twitter, like we have a recruiting class full of 3-stars and we still don't have a class that's, this or that. And like getting people to understand that like where Arkansas is as a program, they're going to spend, yes, they're going to try to get some good recruits, and they're going to spend some money for some, but they've got to spend the bulk of their money in the transfer portal. Danny, I'm looking at it like there's only 16 guys on this roster on scholarship who are fifth-year guys who are out of eligibility after this year. So that's not a lot. And you got 24, say they end up bringing in 25 recruits. I mean, you end up with you get to 118 or so on scholarship pretty quick coming back. So you got quite a number. Like if the number is 90, which we've kind of reported on, is that's what athletic directors want teams in the conference to shoot for, even though the cap is 105. You got a lot of cuts to make. And I kind of think if you can get that number of transfers you bring in under 25, I think that would be ideal. Last year was 41, the most they've ever brought in. But if you can get that number 2025, you got a chance to have some good retention, because a lot of the guys you brought in the transfer portal last year still have eligibility remaining.
Right. Yeah. And, that's what I liked about that last year's class that people often forget too. A lot of those guys had 3 years left, 4 years in some cases. So I'm a fan of that. I'm with you on the total. It's got to come down, or I may not be here. I may be dead come January this year. But yeah, anything over 40 is going to be tough, man. But I'm with you on the 20 to 25 transfers a year. I think that's where it ought to be. And hopefully, I've been studying your roster and the official roster for 2 months now, trying to get ahead of it and trying to see what I can expect the best I can anyway. And man, I'm hoping what you're saying there is right, because I'm kind of in that 25 target range myself as far as expectations for the class.
Well, hopefully, Danny, you want to bring back those guys too.
Exactly.
You're like, okay, this guy played well for us. We want him back next year. But, I was going through looking at other teams, aside from the teams that were in the college football playoff, and part of that is probably because, A, they have a good roster right now and probably already have the NIL they need to support bringing guys back. But also, you're in the college football playoff. Maybe that could make it more difficult to bring in players. But aside from them, the only school that was under 20, maybe 21 or so transfers that they brought in was Vanderbilt. And Vanderbilt, I think, is, definitely focused on the high school ranks, bringing in, guys using their academic angle and trying to develop within their program. That's kind of what they're doing. But everybody else brought in at least 20. But if you did that, Danny, if you brought in 20 transfers, you brought in 25 recruits, that puts you at 45 new players. Okay. You have 90 scholarships. That's 50% of your roster would be returning. To me, that is something you can shoot for if you're Arkansas. That should be a goal to me.
And you hope the culture is at a place where it needs to be come January. The funds is one thing. I think you and I both agree. I think they've made improvements as far as their positioning and being able to retain some of these guys. But how many want to come back because it's the cool thing to do? You know what I mean? And because it's moving in the right direction. I don't know what kind of number you can put on the win total, what that looks like this year, but no matter what it is, man, you hope it's just not floodgates opening.
Right. Last year it was floodgates. The year before, 2025, was floodgates opening. Yeah, I mean, you lost Isaiah Satania to Oklahoma, Luke Haas, Jalen Braxton, Patrick Kudus. You just
a whole bunch of them.
And I don't think that's. I think Brad Spence. Texas just took him. We'll go ahead and take Brad Spence
on that one.
Huh?
The year Poopaw.
Poopaw was before the year before that.
Yeah. Year before.
Last year was a pretty big exodus of players. I think on 24/7 we had the recruiting class ranked highly, but didn't really factor in that a lot of good players left. I know On3 does a different type of strategy where they factor in players leaving, and they had Arkansas really low last year, whereas 24/7 had them really high. And this year it's kind of flipped because Arkansas didn't lose a lot of great players. They didn't have a lot of great players. So it kind of flipped on the two rankings with the two recruiting services. Hey, this is a question, Danny, from C.K. Lim. Excuse me. I skipped over. It's actually from – oh, shoot. I'm on the wrong thing. I was on a New York Times article.
Yeah, I'm not answering that one.
Well, it's about sport. It's about football.
Oh.
It wasn't political or anything. It's just about football. What do you think they quoted me, and so I was reading it.
Sure.
What do you think our odds of landing Chase? This is from National State Sports. Chase, Hancock, Jackson, Cepeda, and Braylon Brown.
Yeah, all three in-state guys for 2028. Just 30,000-foot view, I would say so far so good. Of course, it's still somewhat early, but we'll start with Chase Hancock at PA. Wide receiver, he was offered, I want to say in March after a visit. Came back in April, and I talked to Chase last week, and he gave me his game dates here. I want to say he's coming to the Georgia game. That'd be September 19th, and the LSU game, which, praise the Lord, Trey, is back where it ought to be after Thanksgiving. So he'll be at those two games. I think they're in pretty good shape there. Of course, he's going to take a lot of trips. He has already. Braylon Brown, yeah, I think they're in pretty good shape. I talked to Braylon last week too. He told me no dates set just yet, but he did say he was looking forward to getting back on the hill, excuse me, as much as possible this fall. And then Jackson Cepeda out of Greenwood, man, you know, we had our rankings update a couple weeks ago. I felt like he might have a chance for a 4-star. Came up a little bit short, still at an 87 there, so a little bit of room to grow, but I think he can get there, Trey. He might be number one in the state for next year, and I think they're in pretty good shape there too. It's a lot of competition, a lot of big-time SEC competition for that one when you're talking about, you know, Georgia, Oklahoma, some of these schools coming in now for Jackson. It's going to be tough, but, man, so far so good. I think they're doing the right thing by identifying them earlier and getting after them earlier. And it's not just the 2028 class, which that work really started when they took over in December, you know what? And they started re-offering some of these guys. But now, like we talked about a minute ago, some of these 2029s they've already offered. Quentin Sykes from Bryant, Ty Flory from Valley View, where you've already got a 2027 commitment in Eli Thornton. I think that's a smart move. The running back at Parkview, Sadiq Goji. I apologize if I'm saying that one wrong.
Nailed it.
He's at 2029. And then some of these 2030s we're already identifying, man. They haven't offered yet, but Miles McDaniel is one I watched this morning. Kid at PA, speaking of Pulaski Academy, 73 catches last year, Trey. 1,794 yards, 31 touchdowns. He also picked it off 4 times, threw a touchdown pass, and he returned 3 kickoffs for a touchdown last year. Now, we're used to PA kids putting up PlayStation-like numbers, but keep an eye on that one. Miles McDaniel just went ridiculous last year, and I would expect the next few years probably going to look similar for him. But that's a long way out, 2030, man.
It is. It is. But you always have to look ahead in recruiting, and nobody does that better than Danny West. Danny, like you mentioned this, like they're doing a good job getting out on them early. Like, you know, it's not frustrating. It's just like predictable, like looking at the comments of this video of any, like I'll post video of wide receivers going through routes, and it's just like my nephew can run better routes than that, or 2 and 10 incoming, you know, just all this stuff. But like with Silverfield, you know, once you get past like, you know, the initial shock of the hire, like, you know, I thought, you know, it was going to be goalish, and it was, but, you know, all this kind of stuff, or, you know, all the other coaching search stuff.
Yeah.
Like the stuff that he's done so far to me has been very positive, and you have to be careful because I felt that way about Chad Morris's staff. You know, you remember that? Like they did in the offseason leading up, they were doing all the things that they needed to do. But I do like the way that Silverfield structures his practices. I think that they get a lot out of practice. I think the focus, intensity, and everything is right there where it needs to be. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on the job that Silverfield has done, just hitting fundraising, recognizing issues around. I'll let you comment. I don't want to comment.
Well, that's just it. I think he recognizes issues, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that, but he sees what we see wrong with the program, and it really wasn't, you know, it doesn't take experts to figure out and point out exactly where things were going wrong. You look at in-state recruiting, letting the best ones get away. You look at the home record, 1 Power 5 win in Fayetteville in the last 3 years. Mississippi State's got more Power 4 wins than you in your own stadium the last few years. Things like that.
Damn.
Having the AD come out and say things like, the head coach wasn't set up for success and to be able to compete for a championship, I should say.
Yeah.
Man, all of those things have changed. I think you look at the support staff deficiencies, or man, they were dragging up the rear in terms of staff size for so long, and all of that stuff has been addressed, and money seems to be up. But I'm with you. I see a lot of the same comments, and I think you brought up a fair point here a few weeks ago where you said, man, like, I forget the percentage, but a great percentage of this roster wasn't here last year. They had nothing to do with this. So why do we keep bringing it up? What was that?
72%.
72%. Man, that's a lot. So I'm with you. I think he's hit a lot of the right buttons, and so much of what he has to deal with, and a lot of the pushback and the people being a little bit hesitant towards him, I think has nothing to do with him. And we've talked about that before too. It's the struggles that Arkansas has been through kind of compiling against him, so to speak. But man, just as something as simple as bringing in Coach Nutt this past week, I'm sitting here this morning watching former players posting about that, saying, hey, this meant a lot to us. That's simple. That's something simple you can do. It's common sense. Probably leads somewhere eventually where you can get Coach Nutt more involved. Man, you got to do stuff like that. So, we could be sitting here talking in 4 months about a 3-4 win first season for him. I don't know, but so far I'm with you. I like a lot of what I'm seeing. And as well as I do where the turning point was for me earlier this summer, just kind of getting a little better idea for what they're up against and how they're going about it. Man, I think they're doing a lot of positive things.
Yeah. You mentioned all the players that they brought in. The only player that I can think of on the roster that they brought in that was on a 2-10 team last year is Adam Hawks at Oregon State. Everybody else is coming from like winning programs or programs that went to the college football playoff or, stuff like that. So,
yeah.
All right, Danny.
Yeah, buddy. I wish I could drag it out with a bunch of recruiting news for you, but it's coming, man. We'll start getting this September 5th visit list in order for you. We've put out a couple of names already, but expect that to start to take off next week, most likely.
Yeah. No, there's a season for everything, but yeah, it's about to be football season, and I'm ready for it. It'll be over before you know it, even if they suck.
We're going to enjoy every single day of it, ain't we?
Yep. All right, buddy.
Right. Yeah, man.
All right, everybody, that's Danny West. Follow him at Danny West 24/7 on X and read his content at HawgSports.com. Again, 60% off right now for your first month. Around here, we take our traditions seriously, and when it comes to celebrating life's biggest moments, there is only one place to go. For decades, Blakeman's family has been a cornerstone of our Northwest Arkansas community. They're the ones we trust for our milestones, our game day style, and of course, they are where Arkansas gets engaged. Whether you're looking for an heirloom piece, a championship level gift, or you're ready to pop the question, they bring the absolute best in quality, luxury, and local pride in jewelry and watches. When you want to celebrate like a champion, do it with the team that knows Arkansas best. Stop by the Blakeman's showroom in Rogers today or visit them at BlakemansFineJewelry.com. I don't know if you guys know, but Blakeman's is the official jeweler of the Arkansas Razorbacks. So big supporters of the Razorback athletics. So support them. All right. Should we go to questions? Am I ready for questions? I was going to talk a little bit about each position group. I think I'll do that real quick. I think I'll just kind of give a couple of opinions on some position groups. I've made my stance on quarterback pretty clear. I do feel like AJ has gotten better as camp has progressed, though. Like, again, when he throws a deep ball, sometimes it'll flutter and stuff, but it'll find its mark also more often, than the shorter stuff. And I've just mentioned, that's kind of where I see the issue. So I don't know. I would probably, you got to name your starting quarterback at some point, but you don't have to tell everyone publicly. Well, I wasn't talking to you, Siri. You mind your own business. But I do think it's KJ as a starting quarterback. Running back, I think it could get interesting with who you put out there first, but I would probably say Sutton Smith goes out there first. But I could see Braylon Russell definitely. I could see Braylon Russell leading you in yardage, but I could see Sutton moving around, splitting out wide some. I haven't necessarily seen that, but I could see that happening a lot. Chris Marshall at split end, C.J. Brown at flanker, and Ismail CC in the slot. That's how I see it playing out. Jamari Hawkins pushing. Donovan Faupel will play. Antonio Jordan and Courtney Crutchfield will also definitely play. But that's kind of how I see it rounding out. And then you find some situations for Jelani Watkins. I mean, the guy runs a 9.8, 200 meters. Tight end, Jaden Platts. Good to see Ty Lockwood make that play the other day. They're a little thin at tight end, in my opinion. I really like Platt, but I don't know after that. So a little bit thin there. Nothing has changed on the offensive line, guys. It's been Kavion Broussard, Malachi Breland, Caden Kittler, Kobe Branham, Bryant Williams, pretty much every day. They did the other day in 2 minute. They moved Cash Courtney with the starters at center, I think just to get a look. And then when they came out and moved the ball, team tempo, they had Adam Hawks at right tackle in place of Bryant Williams. So they do mix it up just a little bit here and there, just kind of see, I think, how it looks if we do this. But the offensive line has not really changed. I think the biggest challenge right now, the biggest battle is probably at Jack. Now, they did something the other day with, some third down stuff where they had Charlie Collins in at end instead of Jack. They had Steven Souls in at Jack. They had Quincy Rose at nose tackle, and they had Hunter Osborne at defensive tackle. So a little bit of a different look there. I like that look. If you need to get some pressure on the field, that's not a bad look. So they do mix some things up like that. It feels like right now the starting Jack is probably Steven Souls. Collins, I think, obviously has a big role also there, but it feels like Souls, just for, I think his experience and production in the SEC last year. That's how I see it playing out right now. We'll see how it goes. Bradley Shaw and Jaquavian Smith, no question. Those are your two middle linebackers. I think your next two guys right now are Phoenix Jackson and Wyatt Simmons. They don't necessarily always rotate in like that, but I think that's your next two guys. Kamori House has had a really strong fall camp. At star, it's Carter Stoutmeyer behind him. I think that's pretty well locked in. Free safety, Christian Harrison. Miguel Mitchell has started every practice of fall, all 7 practices so far, all 6 practices so far. So that's definitely interesting how that's played out. Tate Lockett, they really like him as a freshman. Kiari McGlure, that's pretty well set, I think, at safety. Christian Harrison, Miguel Mitchell, then behind them, Tate Lockett, Kiari McGlure. Cornerback, I think you still got some competition between Shelton Lewis and Lakai Rowland, but it does feel like Shelton Lewis has started to separate himself. And I think that probably started with the offseason, because in the spring we saw predominantly it was Lakai Rowland. Jaheim Johnson has pretty much started every practice over at right cornerback. And then Braden Lee is probably the next guy. They also like DJ Hairston a lot, the junior college transfer. So that's how things are shaking out right now on depth chart. I think that's pretty close to how we're going to see it when game day does arrive. Okay. I want to get to some questions now. Okay. Here we go. All right, I mentioned Natural State Sports question. This is from Joshua 11. What is the overall chemistry and vibe of the players on the team? Also, how good will our offensive tackles be this season, in your opinion? Game is still won at the line of scrimmage. Talking to the defensive line, they seem to really like the offensive line. And again, you got a guy like Carlin Jones who comes from USC, where they were obviously very good on the offensive line, a lot of talent. So they seem to like them. The chemistry and vibe of the players, this is just my perspective. Last year, I felt like it was hollow at this time. I felt like they needed to win early on to get some momentum going, or they would, kind of let go of the rope, which is exactly what happened. I feel like there's a better chemistry with this team, and maybe it's because it's so overwhelmingly new, so many new players. Maybe that's part of it. But I just feel like a lot of the guys that they got are, football junkies, love football, good personalities. Like, I felt that way about, Carlin Jones. I'm trying to think of like some of the new guys that I've spoken to. I've spoken to A.J. Hill. He's a little bit more reserved. Not that makes you not a good teammate. I don't mean that, but I'm just saying that's just, kind of his personality. Obviously, KJ is very personable. Sutton Smith, I think, has been a fun addition to the room. Bringing, this is how we did things at Memphis. This is how it's going to apply here. But Sutton Smith is really fun interview. Have not talked to Chris Marshall. I really liked Jamari Hawkins the other day. I don't know. I just think like some of the guys that they brought in, Kamori House is another good example. Christian Harrison, Joker, Shelton, Lewis. I mean, I believe them, I guess. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you want to believe. I believe that, some of the things when they talk about, the chemistry with the team and stuff, I feel like it's real. And I know that has been a big emphasis. That's one of the things that Pittman, kind of glossed over. Like he wasn't a big, like we wouldn't find out a walk-on got a scholarship until we asked about it. Every other coach in the country makes a big deal about a scholarship for a walk-on. Pittman just kind of, he just didn't do that kind of stuff. And I wonder also how Pittman did at team building. And part of that's just up to the players and their personality and stuff. But how good was he at building a team? That's something that Houston Nutt obviously struggled with late in his career. But early on in Houston's career, like he knew how to bring a team together. Like players loved Houston. I love that he was at practice the other day. Like Dal told me, like him and Darren McFadden will see each other and they'll be like, you got a buddy and you'll just always say the same thing. And he's like Gatorade you, water you, Gatorade you. Like they both say that to each other because it's Houston used to say that, like, when you accuse the players of not being thankful for what they have, he'd be like, water you, Gatorade you. You don't even show up with passion and energy. So, yeah, I do think it's actually a pretty good bond going with this team. As weird as that is to say for so many new players. And I think a lot of that's a testament to the type of guys that they brought in. Jaquavian Smith, another good example. Pork Ryan says, I can't fathom practice at 3:15 every day in this heat. How's the team held up so far? I have a buddy that has a kid at an in-state D2, and he said they got to go at 10 a.m. and are losing 5 players a day. I haven't heard any reports of anything like that with the Hogs. We look like we're in great shape. Usually programs on this level have a lot better resources as far as, hydration and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're weighing guys every day, all those kinds of things. It is hot out there. Like day before yesterday, there wasn't a breeze to speak of. It was just warm. Like, it was toasty, probably 100-degree heat index, So, yeah, every day when I come off the practice field, I'm sweating, and I'm just standing there looking at these guys in full pads, running up and down the field. So it seems like it's been good. Obviously, you come out with a lot of energy. There's been maybe a moment here or there where I've seen a coach get onto a player because he didn't feel like he's going, hard enough, full speed enough. But no, I haven't seen anything like, well, this guy's out because he dehydrated or something, Hog Wild 97, who do we roll out with our first series at wide receiver? Chris Marshall, Ismail Cece, CJ Brown. And if it's not that, then Jamari Hawkins over Ismail Cece. That would be the one spot I would say, okay, maybe that would be that. Dogtown Hog says, does Silverfield strike you as a guy that can fire up his players and give a hell of a rah-rah locker room speech? I mean, I think he can do that more than Petrino could. I don't think that he has, I don't think it's like Houston Nutt, and I think he could do it more than Pittman. Pittman's speeches weren't that great. It was more just like, hey, y'all, y'all get in here. So, yeah, I think he could do it more than that. But, what we see from Silverfield mostly is, a very cliche coach speak kind of coach. And that's a lot of coaches out there in college football. That's a lot. Anytime a coach, I brought this up before, but anytime a coach speaks his mind, we play the clip over and over again and we dissect it and we make fun of him for saying it. And, when things don't go right, we throw it back in his face, like Bielema did. Bielema was a great soundbite, and everything he said, we just like hammer him for it. So no wonder coaches don't want to talk like that. But I don't know what kind of pregame speech guy he is, but I would expect him to be better than, Bobby, Chad, obviously, and Sam. I think Brett was probably pretty good at it. Houston was good at it. Stiflin says, in response to Pork Ryan's comment, it's a good point. I'd like to know as well. Yeah, I haven't seen anybody like falling out. Gumpster117 says, Trey, what does a successful scrimmage look like to you? Nobody getting hurt, obviously. Will it be ones versus ones or some other combo? I would assume they'd do some 1 versus 1s and 1 versus 2s. That's what I would guess. But maybe we'll find out a little bit more about the format coming up here in the next couple of days. We don't talk to Silverfield until after that scrimmage. But to me, I'd like to see moments both ways. I'd like to see big plays by the offense that, as a defense, there's just nothing you can do about it. Like, that's just such a great throw and such a great catch. Like, there's no defending that. Like, he's in good coverage. I don't want to see guys running wide open. That's how the big plays happen. I don't want to see it like that. I want to see it to be like, there's just no way to stop that. You're typically with scrimmages, you're going to see more passing than running. That's just how scrimmages always go. So I wouldn't expect to see a whole lot of like rushing yards and stuff. But generally the way he's done them, he's just done them kind of as game-like as possible. Pittman did things very situationally a lot of the times. I do think you should do like third down sequence and red zone sequence and that kind of stuff if you can. But otherwise, just run it like a game as much as you can. Pigsburg Squealer says, how does this team look in fall camp compared to previous head coach years, 2018 and 13? 20 was a good-looking team. That was a weird year because of COVID. Like, we had to stand in one spot. And like 20 feet away from the next person. 2018, I mentioned the chaos that practices were in 2018. 2013 is interesting because Bielema wouldn't let us into the first 4 practices, which I always thought was kind of strange, but didn't let us into the first 4 practices the first year. Guys, I like the structures of practice. I think the players get after it. I don't feel like there's a lot of wasted time. I feel like also it doesn't feel like as many players are out there. And I think that's just kind of how they have things set up. It just feels very structured. And I mentioned how they'll do things with music and stuff like that. We'll use music here when it's team tempo and it's 11 on 11, and we'll crank it up. And, it's a special teams period. It's a teaching period. No music this period. It's individual drills, music, but the volume is down. I feel like Silverfield is very cognizant of everything like that. Like, I don't feel like there's a lot of stuff that's just overlooked, which I like. Pigsburg Squealer says, are we going to win any regular season win bets on the wager wagon? I think so. I think we did okay last year, didn't we, on the wager wagon? Tyler Tober says, Trey, can you rank SEC football stadiums 1 through 16? Can I? Let's see. I've got standings up over here. All right. So it's difficult to me when you get to a certain area. Like, I've always said, people say this is the best burger I've ever had, where I might be thinking it's more like, well, this is one of the top 5 or 10 burgers I've ever had, like this burger's in this category. Maybe more like Dave Portnoy, where he ranks things on a scale of 0 to 10, although nothing's ever been a 10 on pizza. But there's a lot of 9.2s out there. They're all fantastic pizza. I would say the best stadium in the SEC, my favorite one to go to is probably LSU. So I'm going to say LSU is number one. I'm going to say Alabama is number two. Alabama's very symmetrical, and I like that. And I think it's a good environment, good game day environment. So to me, those are the first two, and I might say that's in a category. Texas, Texas is interesting. Like, it's a big stadium and everything, but I don't know, the layout isn't as intimidating to me. It's very strange on the inside. It is like an ant farm. Like, there's just so many, like, you got to weave your way through all this kind of stuff. But I would probably put Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee probably on this next tier. Tennessee, like, it could use a facelift, I think. Georgia, again, kind of the same thing with the layout. I just don't find it like dramatically intimidating. It's got 3 decks and all that kind of stuff. The end zone, one end zone's kind of like, it's just not a lot of seats in that side of the end zone. So I might put those 3 in a tier. Florida, I'll put Florida in there too. Florida grinds on my nerves a little bit because it's such a mess. It's just the symmetry of it, although they're about to totally renovate it. Now, that brings me to Kyle Field. So I've been debating lately, should I drive to College Station? Should I fly to Houston? Should I fly to College Station? I mean, I'm thinking maybe I drive to 6 hours and then drive the rest of the way, because we know it's a 2 to 7 o'clock kickoff sometime. But I've been debating on how I'm getting to College Station. But I have not been to the new Kyle Field. The old Kyle Field I'd probably put in there with, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida. But the new Kyle Field may be up there or above LSU and Alabama. But I have to mention that I haven't been to Oklahoma, so I can't say Oklahoma. I'll be at Oklahoma next year, though. Those are the only 2. I've been to Kyle Field. I just hadn't been to the renovated. Those are the only 2, along with renovated Vanderbilt. I haven't been to that. The next group of stadiums, I might put Auburn next. And then I think you run into Razorback Stadium. You run into Bryce Williams at South Carolina. I think maybe those 2 are just in a category by themselves. Then I think you start going down to Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Maybe Ole Miss is next. Maybe then Mississippi State. Kentucky is above Mississippi State. I think Kentucky's better than Mississippi State. Again, symmetry. I like that. Then maybe your Missouri, and then the old Vanderbilt's all I've really got to go on. I can't do the new Vanderbilt. So that's a rough order. I might change things around a little bit, but that's not too far off of what I would say. I have been to every stadium in the SEC again, except for Oklahoma, which is, new to the SEC. But I'll be there next year, and I'll be at Vanderbilt's renovated stadium this year, and I'll be at Texas A&M's renovated stadium, which, obviously that's been a little bit, but they played in Dallas until last year. No Country for Old. I'm about to wrap this up. This will be the last question. No Country from Old Hog says, from what heard, how has real donor fatigue been, not just Arkansas, but across the SEC? I think it's been there, but for Arkansas, donor has picked up significantly. I would like them to come up with other ideas and stuff, but no, the donations to Arkansas football has gone up dramatically. I mean, raising all that money, $25 million, as part of their all-in fund goal, and raising that to $50 million. Things are heading in the right direction financially. That's one reason, I think there's reason to think that, they won't go to, they won't go 0-2 or 2-10, Which guys on this team would be your picks to mic up during a game? I don't know. Braylon, maybe. Bradley Shaw. Quincy Rhodes. Quincy Rhodes is funny. All right, everybody. Appreciate you joining me on today's show. If you haven't checked out our friends over at Back Nine Golf, you should go check them out. They are on College Avenue in Fayetteville. They have 4 hitting bays with the full swing simulators, which are the state-of-the-art, the best simulators that they have. Probably about $60,000 in each of those simulators. In those hitting bays. They've got massage chairs. They've got TVs all over the place, couches, places to sit. They've got a bar, but it's BYOB, so you can come have a party in their VIP room, like for your fantasy football or any of that kind of stuff. And, they got tables, pool tables, all that kind of stuff. Go check them out. Get a free demo. Go to theback9golf.com and sign up for a free demo. And they've got plenty of different monthly plans for you. All right, everybody. Thanks, Danny West, for hopping on. Appreciate all of your questions. And I'll get back to these questions on the board and answer them in text here shortly. All right. Trey Biddy, HawgSports. Catch you next time.